Hey guys, and welcome back to another video of ECK Sports, and today I am back at it with another video, and this time I'm going to be doing a very special video, and that is the MLW fan episode. I'm going to be having a fan from all 8 teams on the channel today, and they're going to be answering some questions for me about the first half and what's to come throughout the rest of their season. I've always wanted to get you guys involved, so today is the day. So without further ado, let's get into it. Currently sitting at 6-3 in first place in the AL is the Pacific Predators, and their representative is Carter Ferris. Welcome on.
Hey.
The last 2 years, 2022-2023, we had good teams both years, won in the ALCS, but couldn't quite get over the hump. Is this finally the year where we do actually get over the hump, make the World Series, and possibly win it?
Most likely, yes. Right now, I honestly think all the teams in the AR, I think they're mediocre at best. But yes, I do think so. I think we're definitively right now number 1 in the AL, and I think it stays like that.
You know, Cratched, he won an MVP in 2019. He won one in 2022 and 2023. Do you think that this year he gets his 4th?
Yes, absolutely. There's some contention, but not enough where I think Cratch overtakes any player right now in any sort of stat, leaderboard, whatever. I've seen Cratch pitch in person, and he is unstoppable. He is also very ruthless in the way that he conducts his pitching and his batting and everything else. It's unbelievable. So yes, I do think so.
For the audience that doesn't know, the series that Carter actually went to was against the Wildcats, where he threw 6 innings scoreless and hit the home run.
Yeah, and I got to see him completely destroy Patrick Bowman's perfect game.
So a big issue for the Preds this year and in past years has been their second pitching. If you were the manager, and if you are thinking in the mind of Alec Ward and Ryan Cratched, who would you start in Game 2?
Levi Fleer, while I know you draft him and you hope he goes immediately fantastically well, like that doesn't happen often. There's always those few exceptions. But Fleer is going to need time. He was a mid-round draft pick for a reason. So I'm not going to say like Fleer's a bust and everything like that. You can't determine that. I would swap around with McGlade and Fleer. I would probably give maybe a little more reps to Fleer in this case, just because he has more upside, I would say. I think McGlade still has pitching talent in him where you might be able to throw off a team or two by putting him in McGlade.
So one of the best moments this year is when Rudy Ramirez hit his first home run in his MLW career. He also hit another one and has been looking to heat up as of recent. So, I mean, just speak on that and how that affects this team.
Oh, dude, Rudy brings in so much energy. It's unbelievable. I still remember going to a game last year with Rudy, and he is like he is trying to energize his team on the bench and like legitimately screaming everything he says. And everything he says is like positive and all of that stuff. He's a huge morale boost. I can understand why the Predators love keeping him around, because he brings off that positive vibe that every sort of team would want. He's obviously been rough. I mean, and who knows? Maybe after he's hit 2 home runs, he might be able to actually provide more support in terms of the offensive department.
And then my last question is, what are your predictions for the Magic and Eagles series, and where do you see this team ending up?
Magic have so many question marks that I would have to say I think the Preds win that series. I think Preds at least take 2 on them. In terms of the overall series, I do think Predators, I think it's going to be Preds-Eagles in the World Series. I think Preds take it. I think having Ryan Cratch, I think he can shut down the Eagles very well. Eagles have a very good pitching. Offensively, I would say they're a little under where the Preds are. So I probably am giving the Preds the slightest of edges. It would not be a 3-0 sweep, but it would be close. I think Preds would take it.
Currently sitting at 2nd place in the AL at 4-5. I have the Coastal Cobras representative Aiden Elstein from the Sports Ranter channel. And I would say you guys have definitely been the most surprising team this year. So just kind of talk about this season and, you know, what was expected and how it's going now.
Oh, absolutely. Can you believe these people, I heard rumors of 0-18. I heard rumors of 0-18. And look at us now. We're 2nd in the AL. I mean, the Magic and Wildcats are floundering. I mean, it's great. It's great. It's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I had you guys going 2-13, so you could say I was kind of on that train. I would say the biggest reason for this surprising success is Andy Durant. You know, after a tough 2022 where he just wasn't good at all, 2023 didn't play at all, and now in 2024 he's leading the best offense in MLW. So, I mean, how has that happened? Like, this is incredible.
Who expected it? I knew Andy would be playing well. I was not expecting debatably one of the best hitters in the entire league. I mean, I was at the Brooklyn series. You probably saw me. You know, Andy Duran is maybe one of the most like compassionate players I've ever seen. Just like he always tries his best and always just keeps going and tries to win. Okay, Andy Duran has so much more compassion than anyone else on the Cobras team. Not disrespecting the Cobras. It's just Andy Duran really, he cares. He cares a lot.
Even though Caden didn't make the All-Star game, the pitching for this team is still a huge question. Barron just has not been good this year. Chris hasn't either. The Drew Davis experiment did not work. What do you think should happen with the rotation, and what needs to happen with the pitching in the second half?
I think we have to emphasize Caden Irwin as the ace because he's been so much better than anyone else on this pitching staff. Okay, because the Baranowski brothers have both been, you know, not the greatest. I think we can keep Brennan as like the second starter, but I feel like we have to keep Caden in this rotation regardless of what happens.
So you have the Mallards and Dbacks coming up. What is your prediction for both of those series?
Mallards, I could see us maybe winning a game there. That's like max. I don't think we're going to win the series by any definition. I also think the same thing about the D-backs. I feel like we could sneak out a win of some kind. So I could see us finishing a good like 6-9, maybe 7-8 if I'm being really optimistic. I don't see us like having some major surge and finishing like 9-6 or something. I don't see that happening.
So because there was a pretty weak AL, I was wondering if you thought Cobras had a good chance at making the playoffs, and if they did, could they possibly make some noise there?
Right now, it's wide open. The AL is completely wide open. Right now, I feel like the Cobras have, like, behind the Predators, the second best shot of making the playoffs. We saw what we did against the Wildcats in Brooklyn. I think it's a possibility that we win the ALDS. I think the ALDS is, like, a very flippant. We could win it. I don't see us getting past the Preds, though. I mean, you look at how good the Preds have been playing throughout this entire season so far. I don't think we're making it past the Preds. I wouldn't be mad at an ALCS exit for the Cobras.
All right, and now sitting at 3-6 in third place in the AL, we have the Metro Magic, and their representative is a familiar face, AJ Plays.
Yep.
Welcome on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing me out of retirement after a year. And no, I'm not coming back. Quickly, for people asking, life gets busy. I'm heading into my third year of university. I don't think the channel's coming back anytime soon, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you want to see some AJ, go check out Bubble League.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So my first question is, I mean, you guys won the World Series last year, and you're currently 3-6. So this is clearly a big disappointment. And what do you think has led to that so far?
So far, like, you needed everything to go right so far. Like, looking at the Magic team, Ackerman, Agner, those guys are very streaky. Bonham, I feel like Bonham is underrated. He's consistently always a get on base and sometimes hit for power guy. He's continued that this year, but Miller and Walgate really got us to the postseason last year, and then it was everybody who pitched in at the end. This year, teams are figuring out Walgate. They're pitching around Miller, walking Miller a ton, and then that just leaves Bonham, who can't do it all himself, and Agner and Ackerman. I don't think they have a hit yet combined. And on top of that, why is Jordan Curdy with a fairly good batting average? Why is he on the bench? It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like some managerial mistakes, as well as some guys who just aren't getting it going right now. That's the Magic's biggest issue.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about the managing part. I mean, what do you think about Jack's managing so far this year?
I mean, to be fair, like, there's nothing that's been like completely wrong with it. Again, you're coming off a World Series where Walgate was your number one, Bonham was your number two. You gave Miller the game two ball against the Mallards. That was overall good approach because Bonham did not look good in his first two starts. But I still just don't understand, like, a lot of managers in sports, it's not even just Agner. Me as a Jays fan, I've seen it this year. John Schneider's a moron. It's just like when you see something that's working, it might be a small sample size, but if someone's hot, you get them in the lineup and you get them going. In a limited 15-game season, why is Curdy on the bench over Agner and Ackerman right now? Doesn't make much sense to me.
It was kind of like disappointing to see that, Curdy was only played one game after he was leading the Magic in batting average, and he could have made the All-Star game, but
I know. Imagine getting if we got Curdy in the All-Star game, that would have been nuts, man. With actual like good stats to back it up, would have been crazy.
I would say probably the reason why you made it there. Obviously, RJ and Grant were fantastic, but I just feel like the duo of RJ and Bonham on the mound is really what led you guys to the World Series last year and what helped you guys to win it. So could you speak to of the regression of just your pitching in general with both RJ and Trevor?
RJ has been fairly locked in, but there's some teams that have figured him out. But Bonham has not been the very reliable guy he's been since like dating back to 2021 and where he came over to the Magic later on. All 3 seasons that like since then, from 21 to 23, been a phenomenal steady pitcher. This year, I'm not too sure if it's, he's been in the league for quite a while, so guys are starting to see him better, or if it's just because overall the talent coming in is much better. I'm not too sure what the combination is here, but a lot of factors playing into Bonham's regression. Both the games he's pitched, he's lost. So it's cost him 2 games so far.
And lastly, what are your predictions for both the second half series, which are against Cats and Preds? Yes. So what are your predictions for those series? Where do you see this team ending up?
At the end of the day, it's going to come down to the 2, 3, 4 guys in the lineup behind Miller. At the end of the day, if those guys can deliver, meaning Ackerman, Agner, you guys got to wake up. Those got to be the guys to do it because there's no rule on intentional walks and limiting that. I think it should be like 1 per game because teams are pitching around and walking Cratch, Robles, Miller. Strategic, yes, but it's almost like a way to get out of it, which is, a team should have depth. You can't really take the easy way out every single time. Combined in those series, they'll go 3-3. I think they'll probably take 2 from the Cats and then they'll take 1 from the Preds. Preds look really strong this year. They might be the team to come out of the AL. If they win the series over the Cats, they'll be the team to make the playoffs as the 3, maybe the 2 seed, depending on how the Cobras finish.
Thanks for coming out today, AJ, and I
No
appreciate your
problem.
time.
Thanks for having me, man. I really do appreciate you reaching out and having me on, man.
All right. Well, if you do want to see a world where you can only walk 1 guy per game, check the MLW Sim League.
That's a great promotion tag. Yeah, thank you very much. Madigan rigged the whole thing.
And next up, at last place in the AL, pretty surprisingly, is the Western Wildcats, who are currently sitting at 3-6. As the Wildcats representative, I have not Drew Davis, or better known as NDD. Welcome to the show.
And just for people who are wondering why a not Drew Davis is on, is actually a Sim League lore. Shout out MLW Sim League.
I was wondering why the Cats have underperformed so much. A lot of people thought that you guys might win the AL, so what do you think has kind of led to the Wildcats' downfall?
On the surface, it looked a little bit obvious. Their pitching ERA is second last in the league, only over the Cobras, and they have allowed 8 or more runs 3 different times. However, this is where MLW reference comes into play. Patrick Bowman leads the Western Wildcats with a 3.75 ERA. He has a 6.67 batting average on balls in play against. It is really fielding that is problem. Game 2, Slate 1 against the Dbacks when Patrick Bowman gave up, I think, 10 runs or something like that. Jackson Pearson started that game in right field and was so bad that halfway through the game, Kyle subbed in Sailor for Jackson. Game 2, when Patrick Bowman came into relief in the 4th inning and proceeded to give up 5 runs against the Cobras, Liam Jackson wasn't right this time. He wasn't as terrible. Like, he was putting his hand on balls about every play. Other than Kyle and Sailor, it has been bad defensive play after bad defensive play after bad defensive play this season. Even though Patrick Bowman has a 3.75 ERA this season, his fielding independent pitching is 166. Sean, last season he started tracking what is called the fielding wins above replacements or fielding run value. Basically says how much you're adding or subtracting from a team fielding wise. Kyle and Sailor, both this season and last season, are top 10 in fielding wins above replacements. Everyone else, Patrick Bowman costing his team about 3/4 of a run this season. Liam Jackson is at an even -2, so he has cost his team 2 runs. Jackson Pearson's fielding run value is -5.01. In other words, this man has cost the Wildcats 5 runs just from his fielding this season. So I really think this fielding is kind of the problem as opposed to maybe pitching.
I guess staying on the theme of pitching, sort of, who do you think should be the number 2 arm going forward? Because I feel like Pearson has struggled a little bit. We haven't seen much of Kyle this year. Who would you say is your number 2 going forward, or should be?
Maybe we're breaking the news before Kyle did, but Sailor is hurt and out for the rest of the regular season. And this put a huge dent into whatever the Cats want to do pitching-wise. Let me explain. First of all, before I even explain the number 2 pitching, I need to state very clearly, Patrick Bowman is the Cats' best pitcher despite his 3.75 ERA. Jackson Pearson's fielding independent pitching is in the 4s. ERA, I believe, is in the 6s. If you are putting Kyle on the mound, then you're most likely going to end up with Jackson Pearson Pearson and Liam Jackson on the field. I'm not even joking when I say I think Kyle can give up 10 runs if he gets put out there, because there's no one making plays for him. Putting Pearson on the mound, Kyle in left, and then I will go LJ at right is probably their best option.
Another question, we're talking about LJ and also Saylor's injury. Ty has been heating up a little bit, so it looks like he's probably going to be staying in the lineup. As well as Kyle's had a great season. Likely Pearson will stay in the lineup as well. In that last spot where you got LJ and you got Pat, so who would you rather see out there? Who do you think has earned it?
I quite frankly do not think very highly of Pat's hitting whatsoever. I am not surprised that he hasn't gotten a lot of plate appearances with the Wildcats and has done nothing with it. And the reason is Pat Bowman might have the longest swing of any player that I've watched. So for me, LJ is there isn't a debate. I think LJ is a number 4 hitter. He hasn't objectively been off of this year. His OPS plus is an 80. His WRC plus, so like weighted runs created, is a 93. All of those are slightly below average numbers, but they are more than adequate to as your number 4 hitter.
And then the last thing I'll get into is your predictions for the second half series. So we have the Gators and the Magic series coming up. So what are your predictions for those two series?
I'm going to give you 2 answers. One is what I wrote before Saylor got hurt, and second is what I wrote after I heard that Saylor's going to be out the rest of the series. If Saylor comes back, I am actually very confident in the Cats pitching. If you look at their series against the Preds, Bowman and Pearson combined to, I think, maybe give up like 2 or 3 runs the entire series when Kyle and Saylor are out there fielding, because they're really good. And if you're facing the Gators and the Magic, 2 teams who have struggled really badly with hitting this year, they have the upper hand. Their lineup is unpredictable because Saylor can go into a slump very quickly. JP, same thing. I have been super impressed with Ty Fresnick, probably the most impressive rookie this year in my opinion. They could struggle. Before I heard about Saylor getting hurt, I had them beating both the Magic and the Gators. I had a 2-1 both series because I feel like both the Gators and Magic can steal a game. Now I heard about Saylor's injury, I no longer hold that position, because now you're praying that Liam Jackson gets it done on the fielding. I miss Saylor more for his fielding than his hitting. That is how bad I think the Cats fielding situation is. If the Cats want to make the playoffs, they need Patrick Bowman and Jackson Pearson to be on the form of their life, and ideally, they need to strike out everybody. I'll be honest with you, I think 2 wins might be the limit. I can legitimately see us going 0-6, but I'm going to say I think the Cats go 2-4, 1-5 the rest of the way. I think they're favorites to win the number 1 overall pick right now.
All right, and then starting off for the NL here, we have the Downtown Diamondbacks, who are currently sitting at 6-3, and their representative is Landon. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with something that I feel like a lot of fans are thinking of right now. After this most recent series, do you think that Jimmy ends up giving up the ace role to Trey?
I feel like Jimmy's leadership type, I feel like he will give his younger players more of a chance. In these next few series, depending on how it goes, whoever pitches better in the first game will pitch as the ace from now on. After this past series, Jimmy was having a great year prior, so I'm not worried about him. Flood also is having a great year, so it's kind of 50-50. We have 2 great pitchers. I think it just kind of depends on the day.
And then also about the Eagles series, I feel like that series in general just said a lot about your team. I feel like there's no other team that could come back from a 10-1 loss, being down 1-0 in game 2, looking like you're going to lose, to just come back with not only win that game, but also just dominate game 3.
Our team has our team has such personality with Bennett, with Jimmy. Just our team will never get let down if we lose. One game doesn't define the entire series. The series was nowhere close to over at that point. You just got to keep up some good energy, and if you don't, then you're gonna lose. But if you do, you're on a good track.
And honestly, I don't think any other team can do what the Dbacks did. I mean, do you think the Dbacks are the best team in the NL? I mean, I know there's a lot of competition. Do you think they're the best?
It's very close, but in my opinion, I don't really think we're the best right now. Regular season wise, I think we are, because we have that star number 2. We have a good ace. We have a very good rotation. But once you get to the playoffs, with a guy like Allen pitching every single game, with the guy like Robles pitching every single game, it's going to be difficult. Robles doesn't look good in the playoffs ever, but who knows? He's a great player. He's looked insane this year. Dallas, he's just an amazing pitcher. He's young. He's amazing. He has a great arsenal. I don't think we can solidify ourselves as the best in the NL right now, but I feel like we definitely have a chance compared to the Eagles and the Mallards, but it's really close.
All right, and then my last question here will be, what are your predictions for the Gators and Cobras series, and how far do you see yourself going in the playoffs if you make it there?
So the Cobras, earlier in the year, I would have said we should sweep that. We should still get a series win against them. I'm not fully into Caden Irwin being that ace for sure. He's looked amazing in his starts. I think he's only had 2. He's looked great, but I feel like he still isn't proven. And Baranowski, he had 2022, but on the mound, he's fallen off a cliff. Trey or Jimmy going out there that game, that should be a domination. We should easily get a 2-1 series win there. The only thing I'm really worried about is how their offensive firepower has gotten. Their personality is very upbeat and high. I think kind of like the Diamondbacks. They won't really get down. And like Durand, he's been insane. Baranowski's looked good with the bat. Drew, Zerlag in slight playing time. Esh, like they have crazy depth. And I feel like they could get 1 game off us with that firepowered offense. Gators, I don't fully trust Bien yet. I think he's a very solid pitcher. If he shows what he did in those first 2 slates, we're going to have some issues because he looked amazing. His drop ball was on. He had that 2-seam. He just looked great. Cut out that riser that just didn't really work. If he's on, we might lose that series, but I think we should win that series 2-1. I don't think we're going to sweep. Sweeps are pretty hard because any given day, a guy can hit a home run. Like Rudy hit 2 home runs. Who saw that coming? But I feel like we should at least go 4-2 to end the year. Playoffs, if we're 4-2 to end the year, we should probably get the first round bye, I think, depending on who the last 2 teams play, the Eagles and Mallards. I don't think the Gators will make it.
Both of those teams have a much tougher schedule than you guys.
Yeah. If we get that first round bye, Eagles and Mallards, that's going to be a close series. But with Tommy hitting so bad, Jorgensen, he's a fine hitter, but I don't think Robles can carry this team because the Eagles, your guidance has been great. Allen's been great. Dan has looked great at the plate. Allen on the mound. The Eagles will always be a threat in the playoffs. They have a better offense than the Diamondbacks. They have a better offense than the Mallards. Really thinking about it, they might have the best offense in the entire league. But the Diamondbacks, their big thing is the hitting, not the pitching. It's the fielding. They have such great chemistry, and that's what you have to have on a team. If you have a team that just doesn't work well together, you're not going to win.
And I think it's interesting because our Wildcats fan talks so much about how the fielding has hurt the team so much. The Dbacks fielding has really helped. Thank you for coming on, but before we end, show them what jersey you got.
We got the Michael Shima jersey.
The Shiva jersey.
Best jersey, best player in the entire league. Wish he didn't retire. Defensive god, MVP, 20-time MVP.
Now for second place in the NL, we have the Eastern Eagles sitting at 6-3, and the representative for the Eastern Eagles is Eastern Eagles Network from Instagram. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
First one is, even after this last series where you guys looked really good, started out winning 10-0, unfortunately dropped the last 2 games. So even with all that and losing to the Diamondbacks, do you still believe that the Eagles can win the NL?
Depending on the offense, I think they can. I don't think it's going to be as easy as expected facing the Mallards and Predators, who are 2 great teams. It also comes down to who can, be there for availability. Blade can pitch game 2. I really just honestly think if Dallas can pitch this well, I think we can, but it's not going to be an easy task.
A big problem for the Eagles, at least this year, is Zach and Blade have not been showing up to the Meadows as much as you would have hoped, and they were 2 big pieces in your run to the World Series last year. So how do you feel that has affected your team?
For a guy like Blade having the game 2 nod, I think it hurts a lot. Dan isn't what he used to be. No discredit to Dan, he pitched well against the Gators. I think he had a little bit of control issues against the Dbacks. He didn't pitch as bad as I thought, but I guess having like a guy that you trust more in game 2 not being there, Blade, who was a big help to our playoff run last year, and for Zach, it's just adding like another good bat like him. I know he didn't have the best series at the plate against the Dbacks. For a guy like Zach to miss is big because he adds a lot of leadership, and he also contributed a lot in the playoffs last year, which I think helped us get to the World Series last year.
And then I'd also want to touch on the comeback of Daniel Schultz. I mean, I don't know if you saw it coming, but I certainly didn't. Both on the mound and at the plate, he seems to be doing a lot better. So, I mean, did you see this coming? Like, what'd you think about that?
I saw it coming a little bit, not as much as he's doing right now. His series against the Magic was insane. It seemed like he was getting on base every at-bat. He had a homer. I believe he had a few hits to go along with it. And then for the Gators, it seems like he did okay at the plate, pitched well in game 2. I think he only gave up a run, and that was in the first inning. In the playoffs last year, he really started to heat up, so I think he's really carrying that momentum moving forward. Nonetheless, I think his expectations are through the roof right now with what he's doing.
And then lastly, what are your predictions for the Preds and Mallards series that you play, and then the playoffs as well? Like, how far do you think you'll go?
All right, so for the Preds series, I think that'll be, I think whoever wins the series is whoever wins game 2, in my opinion. I think Ryan and Dallas are going to be going at it against each other. I think if Blade's there, I think it's whoever plays better between him or Levi or Blade, whoever pitches. So I want to say we win 2-1, but Ryan Cratch at the same time is the best player in MLW. It's going to be a tough one. All right, for the Mallard, 2 aces going at it each other. As of late, besides of opening day in 23, I think we've had the Mallards number, but Jordan is pitching phenomenal. Their offense has been a bit of an issue this year, even adding Jorgie. I just think it depends whoever's hot at that time. If the Eagles offense is hot, I think we can beat the Mallard 2 out of 3. And then for our playoff run, hopefully availability, hopefully all guys are there. I see us getting to the NLCS. I think we have one of the better offenses in the NL. Is not saying much between the Gators and Mallards, but I think we can make it to the NLCS with the Dbacks.
All right, and now sitting at 5-4 in third place in the NL, we have the Midwest Mallards, and the representative for them is Mallards Prods from Instagram. Welcome on.
What's up?
It's kind of tough to say, who's had the greatest pitching season of all time, but I feel like what we're seeing from Robles right now is pretty historic, especially in 2024. I know Dan Schultz 2019 was great too, but do you think that this season, Jordan Robles has the potential to be the greatest pitching season of all time?
Oh yeah. I totally think that's an option for him with how much better the offense is than, like you said, 2019 Daniel Schultz. The offense has exploded. You look at 2019, I don't know what some of the worst offenses were, but I'd probably say in today's worst offense is probably the Magic, and they still have guys like Grant Miller and AJ Ackerman and even Agner last year who could still hit the ball pretty well. So I think with Robles pitching like that against really good teams, it shows how dominant he's been this year.
And then I also want to get to a move that the Mallards made this offseason, which was to trade for Brendan Jorgensen. And I feel like as of late, we've seen that a lot of these trades, you got the Bonham trade, the Chadwick trade, ironically, all the Trenton guys, haven't really worked out. So I want to ask you, has the Jorgie trade been worth it so far?
I think we still got to wait another year and see how much he's producing, because if he's producing like this, I'd say maybe. If he produces a little bit better, then I think it was worth it. But if he starts going back into his downward spiral like he was in like 2021, 22, about there, like he was playing pretty bad, then it won't work out.
I feel like the elephant in the room, at least for the Mallards, is Tommy Coughlin. I mean, what's going on there?
To be honest with you, nobody has any idea, because he raked in spring training. Last year, he raked pretty much all year. He was one of the biggest threats at the plate, and we had one of the best 1-2 combos, and you can see how much of a difference he makes in the lineup when he can't produce. I don't know. Obviously, we need to have his offensive production back, but I think that Mallards fans are putting a little bit too much hate on him, because the guy who's supposed to fill that hole that Tommy's not producing isn't producing either.
This is a stacked NL, and you guys are 5-4. Pitching's been fantastic, probably the best pitching team in the league. Hitting, pretty bad, might be the worst hitting team in the league. Of course, you guys had very high expectations going into the year. The Mallards have met their expectations, above, below. Like, what are you thinking there?
I think to the general MLW fan, we definitely fell below. I think what's kind of been a big problem for us this year is obviously the offense, but we're putting up one run almost every single game, and that's not a formula to win ever. In the Gators series, I'm not saying the Gators are a team that shouldn't have gotten a win off us, but if our offense can produce at their max potential, we should have easily swept that team.
And then the last question here, what are your predictions for the Eagles and Cobras series, and where do you see yourself getting to in the playoffs if you make it there?
Eagles and Cobras series, I'd love to say Cobras 2-1, but I don't think so. Obviously, the Eagles need Blade Walker. He just hasn't been there. I don't even know if he's going to be back. I would say Eagles 2-1. I'd love to say that I think we're going to take the division for the third time. With how weak the Dbacks remaining schedule is, I don't think there's a chance for that. So we either have to get the second or third seed and face the Eagles in the division series, and anything can happen from there.
Yeah, so you're saying like 9-6 about?
8 wins or 9 wins.
And now for the final team in today's video, sitting at 3-6, last in the NL, is the Great Lakes Gators, and the Gators representative is MLW Reviews from Instagram. Welcome on to the show.
What's up, fellas? Happy to be on.
I'm going to start with the Gators draft pick from this year. I wanted to know how you felt about Jeremy's first half, because I felt like there were some bright spots, but also there were maybe some weaknesses as well. So what did you think about it?
I thought Jeremy did really good the first half. I think his hitting is the reason why the Gators did not get swept this year. I think Jeremy keeps Gators in games. Although his pitching, he only got one win this first half, but I think his stuff's nasty, and I think he has the stuff in the future to be a really big star in the MLW.
And I feel like kind of I'll call them the forgotten superstars of this league. You got, Chris Cheatham and Jason Chadwick. Not nearly where they once were. Their OPSs are in like the 600s. They don't pitch anymore. I mean, what role do you think that those two can play in this team's success now and in the future?
I think I totally agree with you, but I think Cheatham and Chadwick are both good power hitters. They can put the ball in play. Honestly, they should be batting the 2-3 spot in the 2-3 spots, because they just get on base. They do a lot of things right. They can obviously hit the ball. As we've seen, Cheatham I think was tied for second in the league in 2 years ago, and Chadwick's been really good. Jeremy's going to lead this offense in the future, and Cheatham and Chadwick will do a good job backing them up.
And then obviously the Gators made the great acquisition of Sawyer Bien, as you mentioned before. Where do you think that Sawyer ranks among ace pitchers in this league?
I think Sawyer could honestly be a top 5 pitcher. I think between with the aces, because honestly, I thought at the beginning of the season after that Eagles series that he was going to win the Cy Young, but then Robles came out of nowhere. So I give Beam one more year to adjust, because I feel like there's a little bit of minor flaws in his game, but I still think he can be a great pitcher. I think he's one of the best pitchers in the league. I think he needed this ace job. I think he needed to get out of the Cobras. He's a better ace than Bernoski. I think he was just an ace behind another ace, kind of like how Cratch and Daniel Schultz back in the 2018 Eagles days. I think Bean's doing really good with his new squad, and I think he can honestly lead the Gators to the postseason if the Mallards offense keeps on struggling.
I guess now we get into the second half predictions. What would you predict for the Dbacks and Wildcats series?
I'm going to pull a wild card. I think the Gators are going to come out on top in that series. So they're going to be 5-7 going into Vermont, but I think they're going to lose that series to the Dbacks. The Dbacks are just the best team in MLW at this moment. They're just one hitter away.
So I think that kind of leads well into my final question. Do you think there is any shot that, you mentioned that the Gators could make the playoffs, but do you think there's any shot that they could maybe make the NLCS or possibly the World Series? I know that might sound crazy, but do you think there's any shot of that happening, or do you think it's time to just kind of look at 2025?
I think the Gators have a shot at making the playoffs. Do I have a hope for them to make the World Series or the NLCS? No. So maybe 2 more years. I feel like Cheatham just needs to add more pieces. And I think honestly the Gators could make a push. It's highly doubtful though.
Thanks for watching this video. And honestly, it has been a long goal of mine to get you guys involved with this channel, because you guys really do make my channel and MLW's channel possible. And I'll tell you, Kyle really does appreciate you guys and what you guys do. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. I know it's a long one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.